Something violent and unexplainable just happened at a school in Germany. And the moment we see it, a table drenched in blood lying outside the building, a massive hole ripped clean through the first floor wall, we already know this isn't going to be an ordinary story. At the beginning of the movie, police are swarming the scene trying to make sense of what they're looking at, because whoever or whatever punched that table through solid concrete wasn't human. Or at least, wasn't normal. Before anyone can explain anything, a composed and sharply dressed woman arrives at the school. She moves with purpose, like she already knows more than the officers around her. She heads straight inside, walks past the chaos, and finds exactly what she's looking for, a small girl sitting alone on the gymnasium floor. Her name is Wendy. She's wearing headphones, clutching her Discman like it's the only thing keeping her grounded, completely shutting out the world around her. The woman crouches down beside her and introduces herself as Dr. Stern, a government psychiatrist. She tells Wendy, in the calmest possible voice, that everything is going to be okay and that she'll take her somewhere safe. And just like that, Wendy's life is taken in a completely different direction. But we don't find out why just yet. The movie cuts forward in time. We are introduced to Wendy again, but she's no longer a little girl. She's a grown woman now, living what appears to be a perfectly ordinary life. She waits tables at a diner, takes her medication every single morning without fail, and shares a modest home with her husband Lars, who works as a security guard, and their young son Carl. On the surface, this looks like a quiet, humble family doing their best. But underneath that surface, things are crumbling. The bills are piling up. The mortgage company is sending threatening letters, and the very home they live in is at risk of being taken away. This pressure pushes Wendy to do something uncomfortable. She decides to ask her boss for a raise. She waits until after her shift, builds up her nerve, and walks into the office. She's been working there for 3 years. She makes her case, and her boss shuts her down cold. Not only does she refuse, but she piles on more work, including taking out the trash as if to remind Wendy exactly where she stands. It's a humiliating moment, and Wendy swallows every bit of it without a word. So she heads outside to dump the garbage. And that's when something odd happens. A homeless man approaches her and asks for food. Wendy checks that no one is watching and quietly hands him something. The man smiles, grateful, and then he says something that stops her cold. He looks her directly in the eyes and tells her, "You are one of us." Wendy has absolutely no idea what that means. She brushes it off and goes back to work. Later that evening, she's walking home alone. She passes a group of rowdy, drunk men in a parking lot who try to get her attention. She keeps her headphones on and doesn't look back. But a few minutes later, as she's crossing a bridge, a man comes sprinting toward her from the shadows. Wendy panics. She swings her backpack at him out of pure instinct. And then she realizes it's the same homeless man from earlier. He introduces himself as Merrick, and then he asks her something that makes absolutely no sense to her. He wants to know if she's still taking her medication every day. How does this stranger know about her pills? Before she can even form a response, Merrick tells her something that sounds completely delusional. He says, "Those pills aren't medicine, they're suppressants. They're blocking something inside her powers." Wendy stares at him like he's lost his mind, so Merrick decides to show her instead of tell her. Without any warning, he climbs onto the railing of the bridge and jumps. Wendy rushes to the edge, heart in her throat, and she watches as Merrick lands on the road below and stands up. No broken bones, no blood, just standing there like he stepped off a curb. And then, before the shock can even register, a truck barrels down the road and slams into him at full speed. Wendy screams. She calls emergency services and runs home, shaking. The next morning, she goes to her scheduled therapy session with Dr. Stern, but she doesn't tell her what really happened. Instead, she frames everything as a dream, weird visions where she imagined having superpowers. She quickly dismisses it herself, almost apologetically. But here's what's strange. Dr. Stern barely reacts. She doesn't ask follow-up questions. She doesn't probe deeper. She simply tells Wendy to increase her dosage. More pills. That's her only solution. Meanwhile, the situation at home gets worse. Another letter arrives, an eviction notice. Wendy and her family are officially on a countdown to losing everything. She has no real options. All she can do is keep grinding and hope the promotion somehow comes through. And then the next time she takes out the trash at work, Merrick is there, standing right next to the dumpster, alive, not a scratch on him. The truck that hit him at full speed apparently meant nothing. And now that Wendy has witnessed the impossible with her own eyes, Merrick doesn't waste time. He tells her exactly what he is. He calls himself a freak, a term used for people born with extraordinary abilities. His power? His body simply cannot be permanently destroyed. And he tells her again, stop taking the pills. Because whatever she's been suppressing all these years, it's real. This time, Wendy listens. That night, she stands in her bathroom, stares at the bottle of pills in her hand, and flushes every last one down the toilet. And then she waits. The withdrawal hits fast and hard. The next day at work, Wendy is nauseated, dizzy, her body aching all over. The pain escalates quickly. And then while she's in the kitchen preparing food, her hand grips a steel serving tray and, without trying, without even thinking, she bends it in half, like it's paper. She stares at what she's done, then immediately hides the tray and acts like nothing happened. But now she knows. The pills were real. The suppression was real. And whatever lives inside her is finally waking up. On the way home, the same group of men from the parking lot confronts her again. This time, the leader gets physical. He shoves her to the ground. And something switches. Wendy gets back up and she doesn't run. One by one, she takes every single one of them apart. She's not just fighting back, she's destroying them effortlessly, tossing grown men like rag dolls. And when it's over, she stands there in the middle of the street, breathing hard. And for the first time in what feels like her entire life, she feels free. The next morning is a different Wendy entirely. She's smiling, energetic, engaging with customers, moving through her shift with confidence she's never shown before. And then Dr. Stern walks through the front door. She says she was concerned because Wendy missed an appointment. She reminds her about the importance of treatment. Wendy smiles and tells her everything's fine. She'll keep up with the pills. But behind that smile, something has shifted. A suspicion is forming. The situation at the diner boils over quickly. Her boss confronts her about the bent steel tray she holds it up, convinced Wendy damaged it on purpose, and announces the cost will come straight out of her paycheck. Something snaps. Wendy grabs her boss by the collar and lifts her off the ground with one hand. She leans in close and makes herself very clear. Touch my salary, and you'll regret it. Her boss stumbles back into her office, pale and trembling. Wendy walks out like she owns the place. She goes straight to Merrick, and in his hideout, he finally lays everything out. There are people like them scattered all over the world. People who were born different, who developed abilities that made them targets. And the government, rather than study or support them, has been systematically hunting them down, medicating them into oblivion, and erasing who they are. The therapy, the pills, Dr. Stern. All of it is part of a coordinated system of control. Then Merrick gives her one more piece of the puzzle. If she wants proof, she should look inside the building where her sessions are held. Wendy goes. The building is dark and locked up. She studies the upper floors, thinks for a moment, and then channeling something she once saw in a comic book, she jumps. Not steps, not climbs, jumps. And she clears the gap and lands on the window ledge of the upper floor. Inside, she finds a filing cabinet stuffed with patient records. Patients with histories just like hers. And one name catches her eye immediately, Elmar, her coworker from the diner. She goes directly to his apartment and finds him standing in his room, about to take his evening dose. She stops him. She tells him everything. Elmar is skeptical, but unlike Wendy, there's a part of him that really, really wants this to be true. He's spent his whole life being told he's nothing. His father and stepmother never miss an opportunity to remind him of every failure. If he has a power inside him that's been locked away this whole time, then maybe, just maybe, he isn't the disappointment they've always made him feel like. He puts the pills down. The next day, Elmar has something to show her. He picks up a lamp, holds it in his bare hand, and turns it on. No switch, no outlet, just him. Elmar can generate and control electricity. And now, we have two of them. That night, the two of them talk and piece things together. They've both had these abilities since childhood, but from the moment Dr. Stern came into their lives and the treatment began, those memories faded and the powers vanished. They were altered. Elmar's eyes light up. He says what they have is a gift they were meant to do something extraordinary with it, like the heroes in his comic books. But Wendy doesn't see herself as a hero. She sees a woman who is about to lose her house, and right now, standing next to an ATM, she makes a decision. She kicks it open, takes what's inside. She's going to save her family first. She hands Elmar some of the cash and tells him to enjoy himself for once. They end up at a nightclub. And later that night, when Wendy spots a group of men harassing a woman near the exit, she doesn't walk past it. She lures them somewhere quiet and takes them all down. At the last second, one of them tries to get the drop on her from behind, and Elmar hits him with a bolt of electricity, covering her back. They work well together. On the way home, Wendy gives Lars the money to pay off the debt. For one brief moment, everything feels okay. But the men from the club file a police report. A woman with impossible strength attacked them. The officers are skeptical until their chief brings in an expert to evaluate the case. That expert is Dr. Stern, and now she has a trail to follow. Wendy brings Elmar to meet Merrick, and the three of them form something real, and Merrick tells them what's at stake. There are others like them, not free, not hidden, but imprisoned. Kept in a facility disguised as a psychiatric clinic, medicated around the clock, their identities erased. Elmar immediately wants to break them out. Merrick pushes back hard. The facility is locked down, surveilled, and protected by armed government agents. If they get caught, all of it ends, but Wendy refuses to do nothing. Those people deserve the same chance she got. Merrick, seeing they won't back down, reluctantly agrees to help. The night of the operation, Elmar shows up in a full homemade superhero costume. He's even made outfits for Wendy and Merrick. Merrick refuses without a second's hesitation. Wendy compromises with a red wig, and then the three of them head toward the clinic. Wendy goes in first while the other two hold back outside. She charms the front door guard into showing her to the bathroom, gets him alone, and puts him down. Elmar then kills the surveillance system with a single electric pulse. They're in, but the knocked-out guard manages to reach his alarm button before he loses consciousness. Backup is inbound. Inside, they locate the patients, but then a police officer appears in the corridor with his weapon drawn. Wendy sweeps a table into him. The impact causes his gun to discharge. The bullet hits Merrick. The alarm is now fully active. Police flood the building from every entrance. They're surrounded. Then, the rain starts. Elmar looks up at the ceiling, feeling the wet, and gets an idea. He channels everything he has and sends a massive electrical surge through the water on the floor, taking out every officer in the building simultaneously. They escape. They get to the car. They drive. And then a few streets away, Wendy tells them to stop. She's shaking. She keeps thinking about that electric burst. What if it didn't just knock them out? What if it killed some of them? Merrick looks at Elmar with something cold in his eyes. He tells him that using these abilities without discipline doesn't make them heroes, it makes them dangerous. And then he tells them something personal, something he's never shared before. He says he once made the same mistake. He lost control, and because of it, he lost his wife and daughter. He gets out of the car and walks away, a warning and a farewell wrapped into one. Elmar doesn't seem to feel the weight of any of that. He still believes this is all leading somewhere bigger, but Wendy is done. She goes home. She wants her family back. She throws a small party, invites their neighbors, tries to breathe again. And that's when Elmar makes the worst decision in the entire film. He goes to Dr. Stern. He walks into her office and plays the role of a repentant patient returning for help. He talks about a mysterious homeless man who told him to stop his medication. He gives her Merrick's location. Just like that. Armed agents raid Merrick's hideout hours later. He's captured and dragged back to the clinic. Wendy has no idea any of this has happened. She's at home when Elmar appears at her door, now dressed in his full superhero costume, more intense than she's ever seen him. She pulls him inside. He tells her Merrick has been taken, and that the two of them could be next. Then he offers her a deal. Join him. Together, they're unstoppable. He wants to take on the entire system. Wendy refuses. She won't risk her family, and she won't follow someone who just handed over the one person who trusted them most. Elmar leaves furious, and seconds later, Lars comes in asking what that was about. Wendy makes a decision. She tells him everything. The powers, the pills, Dr. Stern, all of it. Lars doesn't believe her. He thinks she's unraveling, that stopping her medication has triggered some kind of break. He reaches for his phone to call Dr. Stern. Wendy tries to stop him. Things escalate, and in one uncontrolled moment, she grabs him and throws him across the room. He crashes hard. His arm is injured. Carl watches from the doorway. His mother stands in the center of the room looking at what she's done, completely overwhelmed, and she runs. While Wendy is gone, we cut to Elmar at his apartment. His father confronts him, the same voice that has criticized him his entire life, telling him he's wasted himself, that he'll never amount to anything. But for once, Elmar speaks back. He tells his father that after his mother died, all he ever needed was support, not judgment. His father goes quiet. For a moment, he actually looks like he means his apology. They embrace. And then Elmar shocks him with electricity. His own father collapses to the floor. Wendy arrives just in time to see it. She's horrified, but Elmar has gone somewhere she can't reach. He believes they are superior. He wants to build something, a world where people like them lead, control, dominate. This isn't about liberation anymore. This is about power. Wendy turns to leave. Elmar hits her with a surge of electricity, and she goes down. When she opens her eyes, she's in a room in the clinic, strapped to a bed. And sitting beside her is Dr. Stern. Wendy struggles. She tells the doctor she knows what she's been doing, what she's been hiding. But Dr. Stern says something unexpected. She says she was trying to protect Wendy. And then Wendy's memory cracks open something she had completely buried. She's back in school. A teacher takes her headphones away as a punishment. Young Wendy gets angry, not the normal kind of angry. Something surges through her, and she shoves a table. The force is so extreme that it drives straight through the wall with the principal on the other side. That's what happened at the beginning of the film. That was Wendy, a child who didn't understand what she was, who could have killed someone. When she sits with that memory, she feels the fear that comes with it. Dr. Stern tells her the treatment exists to protect people from her. And Wendy, broken and exhausted and guilty, starts to believe her. She agrees to stay. She takes the stronger medication without fighting it. Day after day, she gets weaker. And Dr. Stern, sensing an opening, suggests to Lars that Carl should come in for an evaluation as well, just as a precaution. She says, "It's not a precaution, it's a trap." Then one night, the person who walks into Wendy's room isn't a nurse. It's Elmar. He sets a Discman on her lap, the same kind she had as a little girl, the one she was holding when Dr. Stern first found her. He tells her to remember who she is and stop letting them bury her again. Wendy refuses. She calls out for help. He leaves. But before he disappears, he says, she'll come to him, one way or another. And minutes later, the city goes dark. A total blackout. Every light in every building, every security system in the clinic fails. The doors unlock. Patients start streaming out of their rooms. Wendy walks free into the corridor. She has to get home to Carl, but as she moves toward the exit, Dr. Stern steps out with a guard blocking her path. Wendy refuses to stop. The guard moves toward her, and from the shadows, Merrick appears. He takes the guard down with one hit, but Dr. Stern picks up the fallen weapon. She aims it at Wendy. Her hands are shaking. She says she doesn't want to do this. She pulls the trigger anyway. Merrick steps in front of it, and this time, with the medication still in his system, the bullet stays in. Wendy watches him fall, and something breaks open inside her. She crosses the distance to Dr. Stern in a second and hits her hard enough to put her on the ground, but the damage is already done. Merrick is dying. He reaches up, looks at her, and with his last breath tells her what he needs her to do. Tell the world the truth. And then he's gone. Wendy runs. She gets back to her house and steps inside, and the scene that greets her stops her cold. Elmar is standing in the middle of the living room. Carl is nearby. And around the floor is a slot car track. The wires run close to her son. Elmar can send electricity through those wires at any moment. He doesn't even need to threaten it out loud. She understands perfectly. He makes his offer one final time. Join him. Change the world together. She says no. She charges at him, but her powers are still coming back online, and he's at full strength. He blasts her back with a wall of electricity. She crashes near the bathroom doorway. Lars is on the other side of the room, tangled in live wires. He can barely move. But he looks at her and throws something across the floor, a pair of anti-static gloves. Wendy grabs them, pulls them on, takes a slow breath, and gets back up. She runs at Elmar with everything she has. All her strength, what's left of it, what's come back focused into one charge. She hits him like a freight train. He flies backward through the window and drops straight into the pool below, and the electricity still coursing through his body hits the water. A massive, instantaneous discharge. Elmar dies the same way he lived, burning with power he never learned to control. The threat is over. Her family is safe, but Wendy knows she can't stay. She tells Lars and Carl everything she needs them to understand, and then she tells them she has to go. There are others still trapped, still medicated, still living lives that were taken from them. Lars and Carl let her walk out the door. Government agents arrive at the house minutes later. They find Elmar's body and nothing else. At the end of the movie, we see Wendy on the road. No pills, no sessions, no Dr. Stern. Just her strength, and a mission that started with a little girl in headphones trying to block out the world and ends with a woman determined to make the world hear the truth. So yeah, that's the story. What do you think about Wendy Hero, or just a woman pushed too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more recaps. See you next time.